Thank you, Mark. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's glad to be here in DC again. Actually, already the third conference of the International Network for Immigration Research, just within 6 months after the establishment. And yes, I would like to speak a little bit about the Mediterranean migration crisis and how it affects Europe. It's very important to underline that thanks to geographic reason, the European borders are relatively easily accessible both by land and sea, and it significantly shaped the illegal immigration landscape of Europe. Yet it became a big topic only after the so-called Arab Spring 2011, which led to the collapse of certain states and governments both in North Africa and the Middle East, and it led to the increasing number of irregular and illegal migration towards Europe, partly by land, but also across the sea. And in 2013, mainly Italy could observe a huge rise of illegal immigrants. More than 150,000 people reached Lampedusa, the Italian shores. And in the last decade, we could see the increasing number of arrivals, not only in the Central Mediterranean Sea, but also the other part of Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. It's important to underline that Europe reacted relatively fast in the land borders with the construction of physical barriers. Before the rise of this new crisis, only 300 kilometers physical barriers, fences, we could find around Europe. But after the crisis, almost 2,000 kilometer new fences were erected all around Europe, as you can see in the first map, mainly the eastern part of Europe, in the Western Balkan, but not exclusively. For example, we could see in French to stop the crossing the channel and the tunnel towards the United Kingdom. So we can say it was a relatively quick reaction from the European actors, which was very important. But in spite of the erection of the land border fences, the number of people crossing the Mediterranean and the sea increased significantly. In the second map, we can see that most irregular arrival to Europe happens by sea in the Eastern Mediterranean, in the biggest number currently in the Central Mediterranean, the Western Mediterranean, and in the Atlantic Ocean. And last but not least, we have to emphasize the crossing in the British Channel from France to the United Kingdom. Closing and blocking sea borders was always a challenge for not only Europe but all other actors because of different reasons. First and foremost, big part of them are international waters which share responsibilities. So with the exception of the territorial waters which are very close to the certain states and which are part of the different nations, the high sea is an international area with many different actors who are operating on these areas, which share obligations and responsibilities, for example, in the save and rescue operations. And besides states, we can find different actors, for example, NGOs, which play a significant role in the current crisis, even if we have to underline that they are rescuing only between 10 and 15% of all people in the Mediterranean. But actually, because of the rule of the sea, each vessels are obliged to save people who are in trouble in the waters, and it is utilized by human smuggling networks, which regularly use small boats with a lot of people, with a bad shape, the boats, counting that they will start to sink, and each vessels in the region will be obliged to try to save the people there. If we are moving to the third map, in the Central Mediterranean, as an example, we can see these overlapping responsibilities. Both Italy and later the European Union started different missions to save people who are trying to cross, but they try to do it mainly close to the Italian shores. while they try to cooperate with the Libyan Coast Guard to stop the boats to leave North Africa. But between the two zones, we could find NGO ships which served some kind of taxi service for the migrants and the human smuggling networks. Actually, it also increased the perception of human smugglers that they don't have to use proper boats to transfer people from North Africa to Lampedusa and the Italian shores, because they knew that, and they still know, that the NGOs will save people. And if not, it's not their problem. It's unfortunately the problem who people are drawn into the Mediterranean. So actually the gap between the EU operations and the national obligations, for example, Italy and Malta, are filled by the NGOs who are operating in the region. If we move to the fourth map, it's also very visible that the distance between North Africa, namely Tunisia and Libya, is very small, comparing the ocean shield, which it protects the United States. For example, the distance between Sfax and Lampedusa is just 200 kilometers, so 130 miles. It's relatively easily accessible by small boats. It's not accidental that hundreds of boats are arriving annually to the small island of Lampedusa. And with the exception of the stormy weathers in the Mediterranean, at the beginning, at the end of the year, actually the crossing are ongoing in whole year. And last year we could see more than 170,000 crossing in this small gap between Europe and Africa. Mostly, but not exclusively, African citizens, but we could see, for example, other nationalities, Bangladeshis, Syrians, who try to reach somehow African capitals and cross the Sahara, and then they try to reach Europe. What are the solutions? In the Eastern Mediterranean, we can see that, for example, the Greek island and Cyprus itself, an independent country, even if it can be considered as detention, but they are closed. So even if people arrive to the Greek islands, which are just a couple of miles from the Turkish shores, it's not easy for them to move further. They can do it only if there is collaboration with the authorities. So it's a problematic case. Why Cyprus? While still it's the part of the Schengen area, of the European Union, it's not part of the Schengen area. So it's also hard for the people who move there from Cyprus to the European Union. But it's not the case, for example, about Lampedusa and Italy. So the strategies of the recent years are mainly the externalization, the different forms of externalization of the combat against illegal immigration. One is the cooperation with third countries, the so-called gatekeepers, to stop the embarkation from the North African and Middle Eastern shores. The EU established collaboration with Egypt, Morocco, the Libyan Coast Guard, which are relatively effective, but of course they can't stop all crossing in the sea. The other form of externalization is some kind of outsourcing asylum procedures. There are certain attempts by Denmark, a EU country, and the United Kingdom, which is not an EU country, how they can outsource asylum procedures. This is the so-called Rwanda deal, which is under negotiation, but there's no any achievement in this case. But what was an achievement, and perhaps it can be the next step, which must be considered by the European capitals and Brussels itself, is the Italian-Albanian deal, because Rome made an excellent agreement with the Albanian parties. If they stop the boats in international waters far from the territory of the EU, they can transfer them to a third safe country, in this case Albania. And the first part of the asylum procedure isn't going there, outside of the EU territory and outside of EU legislation, which make possible or more easy for Italy to relocate these people if they don't have any chance to get international protection in the European Union. This is an early stage. this cooperation, but it seems that even the EU and the Commission accepted it as a possible solution. A lot of member states are watching closely whether it can work or not. And according to my assumption, it can be a solution for boats besides the collaboration with third countries. Thank you very much.